if you have a longer lead time, there are certainly things that the stopgap or long-term planning of civil defense can do to mitigate against casualties. The point is that the millions that will die and the millions that will be dying will be on a scale that we have never seen in our society. And the millions who may survive, and it will be a fraction of the U.S. population, will come out of their shelters, whether they know when to come out or not is a very important point, come out of their shelters to face the world that Ehrlich and Sagan and the world of American physicists and biologists have described, and that is a world that won't support life.
We want to check now on the progress of the Candlelight Peace Vigil right now in Lawrence. Scott Feldman is there. Scott?
Yeah, you're on.
Larry, Lawrence streets were deserted about 30 minutes ago, but not any longer. Many of the people have come out of their homes to be here on the KU campus to be a part of this candlelight vigil organized by a group calling itself Let Lawrence Live. There will be speeches, there will be music, there will be a special candlelight ceremony in just a few minutes, and then certainly a discussion about the movie the day after that these people have seen here tonight.
Can you move out here?
In Kansas City, there is a special candlelight ceremony there also. It's happening at the Liberty Memorial, and Channel 9's Gary Gunner is there.
Scott, that's right. The plans are taking place now. About half an hour ago, the six of the organizers showed up here and began setting up some posters and some tables and such. Really, the demonstration is not nearly underway yet. They're planning to reach a peak about 10:15 tonight. They're hoping, they say, for as many as 500 people to show up here. That remains to be seen, of course. But anyway, there are about perhaps now as many as 30 people, again, preparing for the demonstration, which perhaps will reach its peak not for another 45 minutes from now. At Liberty Memorial, I'm Gary Gunter.
Thank you, Gary. Our audience has been patiently waiting to ask questions of our panel, and I know there are some very important and significant questions in the minds of our people here. Let us start here. If you would give me your name and direct the question that you might have.
I'm James Bogle. Jennifer, what is the chance of the United States to protect itself from a devastating thought pattern as it was in this movie tonight? What's going to come about from all of it?
Dr. Leading?
I think it's a great question. You're asking me what is the way that we can protect ourselves against a thought pattern. I was afraid you were going to ask me what's the way we can protect ourselves against the war, okay? Against the thought pattern, that's why we're here, all right? What we need to do is begin to say we've reached a level of armament that is disastrously dangerous. Regardless of the doctrines for use, the strategies we have, the technologies, if they were to go off, no matter who sets them off for what reasons, they're of sufficient magnitude to destroy the ecology of the earth, let alone the population of people and humans and animals. So what we need to do is to freeze where we are and reduce the weapons in a very mutual, careful, analytic arms control process. And we need, in the United States, in the Soviet Union, and throughout the world, to generate enough public concern to make sure that that begins to happen in the next few years. We have a few years. This is the time to be doing it.
And our next question comes from this gentleman. Your name and who do you direct your question to?
My name is Tom Mockabee, and I'd like to ask the gentleman from Federal Emergency Management. After I was concerned about the farmers and when they were talking about scraping off the land, what do we do after we eat all the stockpiled food?
Right. I think in the movie, one of the better scenes was that scene, and you'll remember the gentleman, the exchange between the two. The answer given by the one person that said, "Gentlemen, you have to understand this is a catastrophe." I'm an Iowa boy, and I know that 6 inches of top black soil is something that today feeds the nation and feeds the world, which makes you wonder why they'd want to come in and wipe out the very acres that are feeding the Soviet Union today. But it would be necessary for the half-life of that radiation to go out of the soil. Probably they would plow it up. Probably we would not see good Kansas City steaks for a long eons and eons from here, because we wouldn't be feeding corn and soybeans into cattle right now. But there are ways. It would be, as the man said in the movie, it's a catastrophe. Lifestyle would not be the same, but life would be here. And if we can get our civil defense program geared up, we can get to that point to where we can get that information through the Farm Bureau and the NFO, things like that, to know. But truly, The message of that film, probably the most optimistic message in that film, was the message to the farmers. But life will not be the same, and no one should suggest it would be. But it would be a way that we could eat afterwards.
All right, we have one question from this corner of the room. Your name and to whom is your question directed?
Wade Ledoux, and again to the spokesman from FEMA. How much of the federal budget is devoted to civil defense?
Minute. It's about 77 cents per person per year. Of that amount, approximately, as I said, less than a dime is for civil defense. We don't really need a lot of money. What we need is public support and awareness. It seems that civil defense interest rises generally after a tragedy occurs. For example, the scientific community is totally convinced today that the pneumatic earthquake will rock this area in the imminent future, imminent being within 50 to 100 years. And we are just starting now to protect for that. But I would say that an overall protection program, for whether it's earthquake or floods or tornadoes, which we've gone through before, 99% of that would be applicable in a nuclear war. I, again, consider this film a challenge. I think it's a challenge for all of us. I was raised by the nuns to believe that God never gave you a challenge that you couldn't meet.
Mr. Brani, forgive me for interrupting if I could. We need to go back to our studios in Lawrence now. Mr. Dolan, the Young Americans for Freedom advocate peace through strength, and you've been critical of this movie tonight. Why exactly?
Well, I've been very much critical of this movie. I think there's a lot to criticize. You know, the Soviets are the enemy. It's the Soviets who bombed Lawrence, Kansas. I think what this movie portrays is the two systems of government as being basically morally equal, and I think that's, quite frankly, a callous and irresponsible statement. I hold out the challenge to the Soviet Union, and I would personally lobby President Reagan to unilaterally freeze the production of any and all weapons the day East Berlin is, the wall that separates East and West Berlin is taken down. I think we're talking about a different system there. I think we're not keeping in mind communist ideology, international terrorism. These are some of the issues that, quite frankly, were given short shrift by the producers and the directors, and I take with a grain of salt their protestations about the non-political nature of this movie.
Do you think there really is a political message from the movie tonight, then?
Well, obviously, both the unilateral freezeniks and the people who advocate peace through strength, those people who are sensitized to those issues think so, and I think they're a barometer of the American public. I've never yet seen a more political movie in my life. Quite frankly, I'm the youngest member of this panel, and I was born into a nuclear age. I don't think the question, as Dr. Jennifer Leaning posed it, is the correct question. Nuclear bombs exist since 1955 to 1983. I think the real challenge is the challenge so that the systems, the United States government and the USSR, do not push the button. And I think, quite frankly, the time-honored and one that has proven successful the past 38 years is to maintain the concept of deterrence, and let's strive towards that, because at the same time...
Is there a way, though, that you could use tonight's movie to promote that view?
Well, I think without question. I think that that's frankly what I'm doing tonight, and I expect to be doing it in the future. It is a movie that, quite frankly, I think takes away some childhood from some of the children. I think that takes away hope. I don't know to what extent people have the proper perspective and the development and the ability to understand some of this corollary issues that result from a movie such as like this.
Let's move on to a slightly different issue for just a moment. Professor O'Brien, you teach a course at KU on ecology after a nuclear war. From your research and what you've heard and seen tonight, what do you think the effects would be here on our area, in the Kansas City area?
I think the movie is overly optimistic.
Overly optimistic?
Absolutely.
In what way?
Well, regardless of whether or not a nuclear winter were to occur, all support systems, electricity, water, gasoline, gas for heating, all these support systems, food supplies to area, towns, medicine supplies, all of these would be cut off for an indefinite period of time, so that regardless of how well you may have prepared for your 2 weeks underground...
Emergency preparedness does no good then, in your view?
Well, I mean, how much food does a town like Lawrence, Kansas have stored up? How much does the average citizen you would need to be storing up for years, not just weeks